Hello, Mandibil here. Welcome to part 20 of my deconstruction of Stefan Molyneux's book, Essential Philosophy. And this time we are heading deeper into morality after a chapter which was actually called, let me just rewind a bit here, which was called, excuse me one second here. Yes, it was actually this one I had already rewinded. It was called Morality and the Elements, if I could speak correctly. And the next one is called The Storm and the Self. Now this is a sub-headline, a sub-chapter, right? So or a section within a chapter. So it's just not very. I'm giving the benefit of the doubt, right? But morality and the elements. What are we talking about? Elements is a completely new term that haven't, as far as I can understand, not been used in any way in the previous chapters. And it's elements with large E, with capital E. What are those? Is it earth, wind, and fire, or and it doesn't explain it either, right? It doesn't explain what it is. And the next one where I cut off last part, it was with a section called The Storm and the Self, an analogy. Now we're going into analogies or metaphors or something like, what the hell are you doing? You're talking about morality. And what about these elements? And it's like, I simply cannot follow this, right? From a pure philosophy kind of approach to things, right? So it's like he's just, I'm not even sure what words to put on it, but it's like, it's a sort of an afternoon story over a cup of tea or something like that, right? It hasn't been thought out in any rigid manner or any structured manner, or this must follow from this and must follow from this, which is actually kind of a first principle approach, which is sort of a proponent of first principles. Oh man, a logic and structure and then his philosophy is presented like all over the place, right? To be a little one-dimensional in describing it, but it's not interesting. It's not involving, and it's sort of fractioned into sort of subjective word manipulation of some kind, which puts me on the fences. I'm sort of, what is he trying to do? He's not inviting me in. I feel safe in his thinking. No, I feel I'm constantly being manipulated. I must be on my guards to make sure that he doesn't, screw around with my mind to get me to think in a certain way. I mean, this is a hallmark of a sophist. So why is he doing this? Why is he doing it this way? Why doesn't he understand sort of clear-cut ideas of how to present something in a way, in a book, in a text, that makes people able to follow it step by step, a little sort of baby step at a time? Even people who are philosophers might sort of have, or people who tend to philosophize and present their philosophy, and therefore, by definition, in my definition, can claim to be a kind of philosopher, right? They would have a hard time following him because they have trained themselves maybe to think in a certain way, and he doesn't follow an intuitive way of thinking about philosophy. It seems like he has these particular hallmarks, or what would the word be? His I have a word in Danish, but that wouldn't suffice, right? There are these sort of areas. He's very, he's into this particular area, so he finds that important. And then there's this area over here, which he is very interested and finds very important, right? And it's just like, okay, I have these 6 areas that I think I'm very, very important, and I'm just going to present them in some kind of order and sort of disconnected from each other. It's like the first sentence here is like, now we turn to the heart of philosophy, which is morality. It is like, who says it's the heart of philosophy, right? And now we turn to, why do we do that exactly now? What was before? Well, it's like the last sentence is, can you imagine being so solitary, so isolated, so existentially lonely that you would choose to empty the universe of consciousness rather than seek comfort from another human being? I can't, and I never want to. And then it follows, now we turn to the heart of philosophy, which is morality. Why? What is it in the previous text, which was these 40 pages about free will versus determinism, which he blows out of the water compared to other much more important aspects of philosophy, in my opinion, right? So it's just like he has decided, okay, now I'm going to write a book about general philosophy, or call it essential philosophy, and I'm just going to write ride the usual horses that I always ride, like free will and morality is the greatest thing, and the church, and it's sort of his pet areas, maybe that's the word I'm looking for, his pet subjects, right? And then and I've written, if I'm very interested in that, that must be those interesting areas. There can't be anything else apparently, right? I'm just going to write about them and then all dots are connected, right? No, in my opinion, what you do is when you start out with philosophy, and I mean, there could be several approaches to start out a discussion of general philosophy, right? But it's presenting all the dots at first, right? Presenting all the dots of what it means to be a dot, when we are speaking of the analogy of connecting the dots. So, if I'm presenting all the dots, I have to clarify, what do I mean by dots, right? And what about these dots makes that particular interpretation of those dots significant? And what do I use that interpretation for? And then, okay, all these dots over here are not that important, and these are not very important. These dots are important, so we are following that path based on this axiom, something like that, right? Okay, so you have sort of a big picture in your head. The dots there, dots there, dots there, but we are following this according to his philosophy, the author, because of that axiom and so on. You can disagree or agree, but at least it's clarified where you're going and why you're going there, right? And this is sort of the approach all the way to the final dots, which is the moral principle, in my opinion, right? He's just saying, there's some interesting dots over there. Let me discuss them back and forth a little or much, depending on whether or not it's free will, apparently, right? And then there's some dots over there that are very interesting, but somebody who has a completely different opinion about these dots. So I'm going to spend 30 pages telling you about people who think in another way about these dots than I have, so they're very screwed, so I must be right. That's sort of, what kind of philosophy would that be, right? That's a sort of sophistry, right? Cherry picking specific areas and trying to make it look like it's hanging together. So it doesn't really hang together what he's doing, right? He's just, farting in the wind more or less, right? And trying to sound like he's very insightful, sort of, right? Okay. The purpose of medicine, no, we have to get to, maybe there's a few highlights, let's see. The purpose of knowledge is to change behavior. No. First of all, he hasn't really established what he means by knowledge, right? He hasn't established what he means by purpose. He haven't established what he means to change. What is a behavior, right? What is a behavior compared to an action, right? There's all sorts of things that isn't elaborated, right? That are important to understand what he means, because otherwise I should treat it as if he doesn't know what he means, even if he did, right? But so if I'm going to the moon, right? It's not like my knowledge of the moon is changing my behavior necessarily, or find someone I understand when I get out where I believe to find my car, and when I have knowledge of my car, which is when I experience it empirically, right? Why am I changing behavior? I mean, what is changing? Because I can't change it. If I just did it, then it is in the past. So it's an imagined behavior. I imagined that I would go to ride my car, but if the car isn't there, okay, you could say I have a knowledge of the car, but the lack of knowledge will change my, program or imagined behavior, right? Actually, can you change behavior? Because whatever you do is what you do, right? So if you do something and you interpret that as a specific behavior, well, then it's done. Then you can't change it. Then it's done, right? So is a behavior is that which you usually do when you ride a bicycle, for instance, right? So if you get some new knowledge that you haven't seen before, right? But that might not change the way if I experience on the road trip, on my bicycle, I experienced the Eiffel Tower. Does that change my bicycling in any way? Now we're talking about behaviors, right? Not actions, not turning my wheel left instead of right or something like that. But behavior, am I not bicycling the same way as I'm always do, no matter what kind of knowledge I have, right? So it's like, it's just, farting in the wind, as I say. The problem might be that you actually think that you get some idea what he's talking about, which is completely different from what he's actually trying to do. And what he's trying to do might not actually be very good philosophy. So you're sort of very much left in the dark, or at least in a very gray area, where it's sort of, I don't really care about this philosophy because it doesn't bring me anything I can use for anything, right? Okay. I think we will start on the next chapter now, which is the storm and the self, an analogy. Imagine a dark village battered by a terrible storm. Only the walls of the village church hold strong. All who venture outside risk sudden death, but all who take shelter inside the church are safe. The villagers all huddle inside, singing, praying, sharing food. Oh man, it's sort of paradise. Into the village through the storm rides a group of atheists. Dismounting, they pull out sledgehammers, cry out that there's no God, swarm up the wet walls and start pounding on the roof of the church, tearing it away. The storm, the hail, the wind, the debris, all begin flying into the church and smashing into the people. As the steeple collapses, lightning strikes the cross, jumps through the water, electrocutes some of the panicked congregation. In the hellish storm, with the atheists tearing open the roof, it becomes more dangerous inside the church than outside in the devilish elements. The villagers, crying out in terror, stream out of the dying church and into the rain-lashed landscape, dodging flying trees, branches, and rolling rocks. The atheists, after having completed their destruction of the church, gather the villagers before them. You can thank us now, for we have saved you from your superstition, cries the leader of the atheists. The storm is raging and getting worse. Where on earth do we go now? Where do we take shelter? Demand the villagers, covering their children with their own bodies. Chilled to the bone, cut and broken by flying debris, shaking and terrified and enraged. The atheists simply smile and charge off into the storm, looking for another church to tear apart. And what happens to the villagers? I think we all know. We are seeing it play out every day across the Western world. The storm gets worse, the violence increases, and the church, which shelters not just the villagers, but their entire civilization, lies in ruin. Let us say that the church as an institution is wrong. There are certainly good philosophical arguments to make in that direction, but so what? If you are a decent, moral human being, you do not tear down the only structure that shelters the people from storms without providing them a better place to take refuge. And you sure as hell do not tear down their shelter during a storm. If you despise the existing shelter, build a better shelter and people will arrive of their own accord. Okay. have to take care of my voice. Oh. The most fundamental question I have asked of myself recently and of my own history with atheism is this. Do atheists love the truth or do they merely hate the church? Or false dichotomy, right? False dichotomy. Fucking bullshit, right? Atheists, well, if you don't play basketball, right? You're not a basketball player on atheistical basketball player, something like that, right? It's not like all the basketball players say, look, there's one of those who don't play basketball, right? They are the reason why morality is. It's kind of, oh man, it's Christians who won't take responsibility for their own screwed up, authoritarian ideas, right? Which have been pounded into them by their parents since they were children, and they've feared, being killed by devils, and looking at a man being, nailed to a cross. You're told he died for your sins, and if that doesn't screw with a person's mind, I don't know what, right? It is child abuse. And people defending the church or religion, they are defending their parents, right? The lies of the parents and their peers or whatever, right? They don't want to be cast into whatever they are afraid of, right? So they defend whatever lies. It's a well-known psychological aspect of human beings. There's this, I don't remember exactly what it was called, an experiment where they had 5 axes, and then someone who thought it was another experiment, just a bit like what was it called, the old not Libet, but I forget, the one where they give voltage to an actor, right? Where they have to agree on the sizes or the number of little squares or something like that, and then the 5 of them are actors who have been or told what to do. So the last one, who doesn't know what's going on, he thinks that it's something completely different that they are going to test, right? And when they say, well, there are 3 squares here, and there are only 2 squares and a triangle, something. At some point, the last guy says, well, yeah, there are 3 squares, right? Even if he clearly can see there is only 2 squares and a circle or something like that. Because he don't want to be outside, so he's willing to lie because everybody else is lying, right? That's what's going on with religion. They're afraid of their parents. So they would rather, push some bullshit agenda rather than, say, what the hell is going on here, right? So, I mean, okay, come the fuck on, man. This is philosophy, right? Why are you cuddling up? Is it because your morality or your ethics doesn't work? Nobody takes it seriously, right? And I've deconstructed your ethics called UPB, Universally Preferable Behavior, in another deconstruction, which is about 8 or 9 months old. You could go find that one, right? On my YouTube channel and possibly also on Odysee. And it sucks like, a vacuum, right? Is it because nobody takes your ethics seriously? You suddenly have to find somebody who has some kind of ethics, no matter how bad it is, right? Or badly argued it is philosophically. And this one, let us say the church as an institution is wrong. There are certainly good philosophical arguments to make in that direction. But so what? So what? Ja, okay, måske er det forkert, men hvad så? Jeg er da bare ligeglad. That was Danish. I don't care. Holy shit. I mean, this is like a joke, right? It's a joke. I have to treat this as a joke. I mean, it's like, and the language, right? There's a reason why I read it out loud like that, because that's the the punch he wants to make. He wants to be a sophist, right? He is a sophist, not a philosopher, right? He can't say, well, the greatest sophist show in the world, that wouldn't sell tickets, right? But the greatest philosophy show in the world, that's much better. That sounds like it's serious and, rigid and all that, right? And this is where he is in his element, right? His sort of fiction abilities. writing these grand, like, booming voice from the top of the mountain, like. Their villagers all huddle inside, singing, praying, and sharing food. Holy crap, it's manipulative, right? Oh, god damn, man. So what? There's certainly good philosophical arguments to make. Why don't you make those arguments? I would love to hear them, right? But so what? If you're a decent moral human being, you do not tear down the only structure that's... Right? Oh, damn. The state is the great competitor to religion. Christianity aims to prevent... Yeah, but why did state evolve? These hardcore totalitarian states, they're not particular to somewhere else, another religion or atheism somewhere out there in the world, right? They are a result of religion. Totalitarianism is a result of religion because it's deeply authoritarian. It's do this or you fucking burn in hell, right? It's, striking fear into people so they huddle together. They're already huddled in the church. You don't need to take off the roof, right? It's just a, elaborate emotional story to make Christians feel good about their shitty morals, right? And you as a philosopher, you are completely sold out, right? You are a fucking joke of a philosopher. The Christians, yeah, there are good arguments for why it doesn't work and it's incorrect, but who cares, right? Who cares? You can have a big God and a small state. You can have a small God and a big state. The pendulum of society so irrevocably swing back and forth between the two in this tragic manner. Those who wish to grow... Okay, so it's a tragic manner. So why are you talking about religion or God and Christianity basically as being part of a tragic pendulum? So it must also be a kind of tragic, right? So it's like, I don't buy this, right? And it's like I'm even attempting to. I'm completely out of the question here. I'm not going to take any of it serious in any way, right? Those who wish to grow the power of the state know the church stands directly in their path. Ugh. Transferring the allegiance of the citizenry from the worship of God to a worship of the state. So he can only frame his philosophy when he has allegiance somewhere, right? It's like he's so narcissistic that instead of saying there might be something not working in my ethics, right? There might possibly something that doesn't work correctly or optimally, right? But instead of grabbing his own tits, he's going to say all those atheists I was hoping wanted a secular ethics, they don't take me seriously because I'm so great. So I have to find somebody else to have allegiance with, right? Because they don't understand this stupid, ignorant peasant, right? They don't understand my great philosophy. Oh man, this guy is so fucking narcissistic. It's like, it's unbelievable, right? It's not explicit as such, but when you deconstruct it a bit, you see how, instead of saying, I might be going back to the drawing board. After 15 years of trying to convince people about my ethics, nobody still seems to understand it. Even my own children keep asking me, well, how the hell should I understand this, right? So it doesn't work. But rather than say, well, I guess I had to work on it, right? And I have to rehash it or redux it or whatever it's called, right? No. He's going to say, but the religious people, after, being on the backs of religious people for more than 10 years and telling them how stupid religion was, all of a sudden, oh no, I like Christians now. It's so, wow. Why do anybody take this man seriously? Not least give him money. Stop giving him money. Don't encourage him to do shit like this, right? The Marxists say that religion... I want to get to philosophy. I don't want his opinion about what is going on in these grand, epic battle bullshit. They tore down the church. Atheism, did Marxist? Oh, Marxist. Political power. 2/3 of atheists, and then it comes statistics. Give me a fucking break. A moral atheistic philosophy would have said, well, no, I don't care. This they did not. A moral atheistic philosophy. I don't. Ugh. How in the decade or so that I've introduced my rational proof. Oh, if atheists, let's start here. If atheists were truly moral, even if, why, he has to create these, it's constant, please take note of this. He has to find somebody over there who are evil, who are bad people, who are trying to destroy, right? They're trying to attack my ethics, or they're doing this to the Christians, or, they're bad, and it's the state. They're all sorts of bullshit. But basically, we have 2,000 years of Christianity. And what have we got? 1,000 years of Dark Ages and suppression of the Enlightenment, right? Child abuse, as far as the eye can see. I mean, pedophilia in the, priesthoods, and give me a fucking break. And all these totalitarian, communism and fascism and totalitarianism in the Western world has grown out of the most religious countries in the world. How the fuck do you square that circle, Batman, right? Don't give me this fucking bullshit, sophist nonsense. If atheists were truly moral, even if they had overlooked the need for generally accepted social ethics, they would surely have cheered the introduction of a rational proof of secular ethics. Oh, so they would have cheered. They would have said, oh, we want your ethics because you say it's secular and it's rational. Yes, and it's not because there's a problem with the ethics of the book I've written. It must be all those who say, I'm not, it's not like they're rejecting Christianity, but because you're doing it philosophically, right? It's like if you were doing science and you are just presenting something, I saw this over here, and therefore I have written this formula. And you're not going to take any criticism. If Einstein said, well, E equals mc squared. Really? How did you find it out? No. I figured it out. Just, and when you look at his papers, it's like, symbols everywhere. How did you get to that E equals mc squared? You just have to believe me. Are you not, I'm going back to mysticism. If you don't get my scientific method, and it's like, oh, man, right? There's an underlying agenda, right? It's so obvious. It might be a problem to figure out what it is. Well, first of all, he is frustrated that nobody takes his ethics seriously. Instead, he still doesn't have so much self-criticism that he can say, well, it could possibly be something that I did. It could possibly be because it's badly written, or it's badly argued, or people don't understand, or don't get it, how to work with it and what to do with it, right? And then this cuddling up to Christians and Donald Trump and all that. What is that about, right? There's nothing to do with philosophy. And then when somebody asks him, he sort of gets annoyed and sort of angry when, you are out to destroy the world, and you're some of these atheists who are ripping the roof of the... It's like, calm the fuck down, right? They would surely have cheered the introduction of a rational proof of secular ethics. Yeah, but you don't just introduce something, right? It has to sort of be peer-reviewed, right? Philosophically peer-reviewed. And the reviews that people have done over the years seems to point in the direction that it sucks like a big fucking pile of shit, right? Doing so would provide a moral framework outside of religion and above the mere coercive powers of the state law. This would provide the people with shelter from the storms of the world. Well, who would create the storms then if everybody was So you're talking about a little section of people against these other people, right? It's because we are against these people, right? Instead of just presenting your fucking philosophy, right? This would provide the people with shelter from the storms of the world and an objective framework by which to organize their lives, their decisions, and their... Wow, okay, man, that's incredible. Your book apparently enable people to organize their lives, organize their decisions, and organize the larger decisions of a society as a whole. Well, what is an individual compared to a society? Well, if you take away the individuals, well, it's the society. So you're referring to something that doesn't exist. It doesn't have existence in the same way as the people you're referring to who are apparently a part of this so-called society, right? And I believe that you actually understand this, but you're just rejecting it because it doesn't function well now. You need to appeal to society and culture and religion and all that collective bullshit, right? However, in the decade or so that I have introduced my rational proof of secular ethics, atheists have been supremely indifferent and occasionally hostile to the argument. Maybe it sucks, your argument. Maybe your book sucks, right? No, it can't be, because I'm the greatest philosopher on earth. I can't possibly be something wrong in my book. Holy shit, man, right? And his argument for how to observe morality is basically something like this. I'm not going to run around proving that murder is wrong. That's sort of his argument, that is bridging of Hume's Izzard gap, right? Come the fuck on, man, right? It's childish. It's ridiculous. Somebody who wants to be taken seriously don't write bullshit like that. It's a sign that he doesn't know what he's doing, right? Anybody with the right mind wouldn't write something like that, where they would explain what they mean and how to get from A to B to C and so on. They don't write, I don't have to prove anything because I'm you know, it has to go fast. So we have to, no metaphysics and no knowledge. We don't need that. No, they just get on with talking about, you know, sword in hand and fighting, you know, the demon and the devils and, you know, monsters. Get the fuck out of here, right? Think of a village in a near infinite desert. Now we're going to another village with a single murky spring for water. Atheists find the brackish spring objectionable. The water is not pure and destroy it. The people start dying of thirst. The atheists say that they want people to be good and healthy and happy, but they do nothing. Oh, these Christians are just so, we are little people frightened. We can't defend ourselves. Oh, we need the big philosopher to come and save us from the atheists, the non-believers, right? The anti-vaxxers, right? A man starts delivering water from an unknown location. Yes, it's from an unknown location. Nobody understands, even if it's water. But rather than find its source, the atheists merely tell everyone that the man is crazy and that his water is, oh yeah, so everybody is trying to attack you. There could not possibly be anything wrong with your philosophy, right? Nothing. Nothing. Of course not. No, you're perfect. You're Mr. Philosophy guy. You're Jesus of philosophy, right? You're perfect. There's nothing wrong. If there's something wrong, those who are criticizing, there's something wrong with them. They want to destroy the world. Oh, man. This guy is not right in his head, right? There's something wrong upstairs, right? These atheists are condemning the villagers to a slow and ugly death. What is their purpose? It is not to cause and watch human suffering. Is it not to cause and watch human suffering? Is it not also true that the atheists shall die of thirst in turn? It is fine and good to want to improve a water supply, but to destroy an existing water supply for its imperfections without providing new water is neither. Okay, so eat this bullshit, religion, if you cannot come up with it. And I have tried, I'm Mr. Philosophy, I have tried to tell these atheists there's something secular, there's a third opportunity rather than destroying everything. You bad people, you should read my book about secular ethics. And when they read it, it's like a children's playbook or something like that, right? Where he's made the drawings in left hand or something. And we said, what the hell is that? It's not even a moral principle there. There's nothing there. What the hell is it? You're saying, I'm not going to prove that the murder is wrong. What the hell are you doing, man? No wonder people are not taking it seriously, right? And this analogy of atheists trying to rip up the roof of the church is fucking sophist bullshit, right? They want to get away from them. They don't want to have anything to do with these people, right? They have realized it's all bullshit to control you, right? Which is all kinds of religion. And they want to be, yeah, of course, if they're, but they're all these rejections of reality. If everything that is based on a lie will be rejected at some point, right? It will be rejected at some point. It's based on a lie, or at least statements you can't control. Oh, there's a God in the sky somewhere. When we send rockets out into space, okay, but he's sort of out of the solar system, and then he's out of the universe, in the multiverse, just moving the goalpost away so that people can't find out there is actually no God, right? But you can't get to it, right? That's not a part of epistemology. You can't tell that something doesn't exist, right? You can't generalize epistemology. You can say that object exists in the sense that that proposition is true to me, or that experience is in my mind, right? But you can't say, I have an experience that God is not in the universe. But you can't experience not being there, right? So that's the sophist trick of religion, that it is to go as far you can without actually showing it to you, right? You can say, well, I had an experience of God, right? Nobody can say, well, yeah, okay, I guess you had, if you say so, right? Maybe you didn't. And God is always somewhere you can't check, right? It's always, you can't check it, but then the children grow up with people around them saying, oh yeah, God everywhere, God there, God this, God that, right? Jesus there, Jesus this, right? And they won't back out of that when you're 5 years old, right? They will go along to get along, right? So that's the bullshit you're just covering up with this roof analogy, right? All the shit that goes on in Christianity and all the other kinds of religion, which are so fucking destructive, right? And I don't care whether or not the communist or the Marxist are atheist. That's not my fault, right? I don't have to obey some opposing ideology of some kind just because I don't like those over there. I like none of them, right? I like philosophy. And so should you. Sophist, man. The power vacuum created by the destruction of Christian ethics in society will be filled either by reason or by violence. By failing to... Oh, yeah, so what? That's not philosophy. I'm here for the philosophy. Don't lecture me about how the world works, right? That's your fucking subjective opinion. The old alliance between communism and atheism has been regularly mocked by atheists. But that their atheism was about as relevant to their ideologies as their mustaches does not help or aid a deeper examination of any potential causality. Universal, oh yes, it's just, I have my, my epiphany called universal preferable behavior. He's always going to frame it this way, right? He's going to start to say, I have this system called this, and I'm going to tell you why this is important, right? It's not working from first principles. He's slamming it in your face and trying to groom you into accepting it as, gospel, right? So let's take UPB in the next one. So